Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is April 18th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see we still have our ridge here, but it is definitely getting flattened out, and you can see the big clash of air masses, what is known as a frontal system, pushing across the Gulf of Alaska into western British Columbia, across southeast Alaska, and this will be coming for the Pacific Northwest as we go through this upcoming weekend. One more fairly warm day here across much of the region, and then quite a dramatic cool down as we go through this weekend. Some precipitation will return, and we're likely to bounce back to some nicer weather as we go through next week. And we'll take a look at the extended forecast as always as we go through the video here this morning. Looking at the visible satellite here, speaking of this morning, you can kind of see that a little bit of a stratus tongue out here on the northwest Washington coastline, but virtually every other place here across the region is quite clear. You see some high clouds streaming across the area, but you'll start to see these high clouds encroach on the area as we go through the day today. And this is apparent temperature. Let me update that. We're looking at 7:30. You take the universal time there, 14:30, and subtract 7 from that, and you get 7:30 Pacific time, and you can kind of see some mid 40s out there, but we are going to be warming up fairly dramatically here as we go through the day today. And looking at lightning strikes over the last 24 hours, we did have a couple thunderstorms there across some of southwest Idaho, Utah border down there, also California, Nevada, but nothing for Washington, Oregon, or British Columbia, or western Montana for that matter on the day yesterday. And if we look out here across some of the coastal waters, you see the small craft advisory starting to be put up out there, and you see a gale warning in the offshore waters there. That's because of that next frontal system rolling in here as we go through tonight. An interesting graphic here from Spokane National Weather Service. Average last freeze inland northwest. You can see Wenatchee April 8th, and you can see some other areas out there as well, like Republic May 28th. So average last freeze here. Some interesting stuff here. Go ahead and put that in your box there so you can kind of look at that at a later date here. You can just kind of have that to reference that for later, especially if you're a farmer out there east of the Cascades. So looking at Missoula, Montana, also talking about the Saturday early next week pattern change here. Some snow on the passes, mainly above the valley floors, but we're going to get those breezy conditions here. We're going to drop those temperatures down as we go on in through this weekend. And this is just kind of looking at the small craft advisory. Again, this frontal system here brings some blustery conditions to the coastal waters here, and cold water safety tips. Check that out if you need to. Just remember that if you're going out and about today, because things are going to be pretty warm across the area. So wider view of things here, you can kind of see the system that was impacting some of the Pacific Northwest here. It is now bringing winter storm winds across portions of Montana and Colorado, but we got the nice weather here, at least for one more day here across the region. Now, Skywarn spotter training here. These are virtual classes. This is Boise National Weather Service. You can sign up for these and you can take these. And yeah, they're very fun and you can learn a lot of stuff. So yeah, highly recommend it. I'm going to leave a link for that in my Patreon page. You just click on that. You can go in there and sign up for it. So check it out there. My Patreon page link will be down below. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station as well, it does all kinds of cool stuff. Highly recommend this weather station. Now, this is the European. So we're looking at last night's run at 18,000 feet. You can see the ridge that I just talked about here. And we scroll ahead a little bit. That's about where we are right now. And you can see this is that frontal system right there that I showed you on the infrared satellite imagery. And you can see the low pressure center there, the upper level low across the Intermountain West. So that ridge starts to break down again as we go through tonight. You can see this trough setting up here across the Pacific Northwest as we go on in towards the early portion of next week. But by the time we get towards Monday, we'll start to dry things out, and on in through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're bound to bounce those temperatures back a little bit here. You can kind of see some troughing still hanging out. So we're probably going to have an interesting mix of weather here as we go through next week, but we'll be watching that and breaking that down on a daily basis. I'll show you the extended forecast here in a moment as well. Now, if we take a look at the European, put that into motion, you can see a little bit of precipitation starts late tonight, tomorrow morning. It's not a lot of it. And then we go through Saturday. We're going to get this onshore flow. Going to get convergent zone activity here across western Washington, pushing off into the Cascades for some higher terrain snowfall. Again, there's probably going to be some isolated higher amounts, of course, where those convergent zones line up into the Cascades. And that goes all the way on in through Sunday night. Monday morning, still ongoing, but as we go through the day, Monday afternoon, evening, Monday night, we do start to dry out here across much of the area, and then we go on to Tuesday, fairly dry, Wednesday something similar, and probably Thursday also. But on the night of afternoon and evening of Wednesday, we're going to have some of this troughing around, so we could be popping up some showers. It could be a lightning threat with some of this across the southern Oregon, Cascades, eastern Oregon. We'll be watching that over the next few days as well to see how that next trough does develop as we start to move towards the mid and end of next week. Now, if we look at 925 millibars, about 2,500 feet in the atmosphere, you can see we've got some north winds on the coastal areas. You see the southerly, southeasterly winds across eastern Washington. We put that into motion, and you can see as we go through tonight, look at the onshore flow return here across eastern Washington, eastern Oregon. See the westerlies flying through the Columbia River Gorge there. Northwest winds start to get strong, and the convergent zone activity wrapping around the Olympic Mountains. They meet in the Puget Sound area there. That area has nowhere to go but rise and produce some precipitation here. And as it pushes off into the higher terrain, it becomes snowfall. But you can see that onshore flow goes on all the way on into the weekend. That's about Sunday afternoon. Look at these gusty winds coming off the Cascades, straight to Juan de Fuca, some westerly winds as well. Now, take a look at composite reflectivity. We'll scroll through this and we'll take a look at what's coming tonight. A very light precipitation initially with that frontal system, but then we're going to have these convergent zone bands around it. It's likely to keep the clouds going for much of the Puget Sound as we go through this weekend. And then you can see as we go through Sunday, you can kind of see that maybe there'll be a lightning strike in that convergent zone there. We'll watch that as we go through tomorrow's video as well. But yeah, you can see showery weather, big pattern change here coming as we go from today on in through this weekend. Lightning flash density potential. If I scroll through here on into Sunday, see it shows a little blurb there, southwest BC, maybe in the convergence zone. We'll see how that goes. And then as we go on in towards next week, you can see some of the mountainous areas, maybe a lightning strike or two. And then we go on in towards Wednesday. You see portions of Oregon starting to get included in that. Depends on what that next trough is going to do. More on that here in the upcoming days. So, national blended model. Look at Seattle, nice and warm today. I mean, get out there and enjoy that. Big changes coming between today and tomorrow and Sunday. Look at Portland, probably up mid and upper 70s out there. Nice warm days. And then we scroll off in towards tomorrow and you see the big temperature drop. I'm toggling back and forth from today and tomorrow. Check it out. Some big temperature drops. You still get another fairly decent day tomorrow, eastern Washington. But then we cool things down for much of the region as we go on into Sunday. I mean, look at that. You're down into the 50s again versus the 70s for a lot of the region. And then we go into Monday. Tuesday, we start to bounce those temperatures back a bit there. And there's Wednesday, Thursday, check it out. Not bad at all. And Friday, we'll see what is to come after that as we go towards the end of next week. Now, artificial intelligence, a little bit of the extended forecast here. There goes our frontal system trough hanging out through this weekend. Start to dry out there by Monday evening. Tuesday, looks like mostly dry here. A tongue twister here for me this morning. So looking into Wednesday here, fairly dry, but then we get some troughing maybe coming around. You can see there is some precipitation chance as we go into next week. Well, I want to get a little bit more close to that trough before we start talking about it too much. And then we scroll on in towards the next weekend. And then you can see off in the extended forecast, the artificial intelligence wants to get fairly active as we go towards the end of the month. But anyway, we'll be visiting that again here. You don't want to take that, with too much seriousness as we go towards, 240 hours out into the models. Now, looking at 15-day precipitation anomaly, still below average here for the next 15 days on yesterday's European ensemble. Here's the 15-day temperature anomaly, precipitation anomaly as well on the European artificial intelligence. That below normal signal still exists in the models. And 6 to 10-day temperature outlook. There's the precipitation, kind of a mixed bag there. There's the 14-day. Does show some above average, though, as we go towards the end of the month. We'll see if that's going to be changing here. Again, there's not really great model agreement on if we're going to be dealing with ridging or troughing, and probably a combination of both what will actually happen. Here's the 8 to 14-day precipitation outlook, and you can see that there's a above average signal there as well. And the drought monitor came out there yesterday. No changes here across Pacific Northwest. Oregon still completely abnormally dry and drought free. Still got some moderate drought for the Cascades of Washington. They're creeping down to the foothills and some lower elevations as well. But anyway, yeah, get out there and enjoy that day today. Big pattern change coming as we go through the weekend. You're going to definitely feel it. Clouds will be back, precipitation chances. And again, watch out across the Cascades and the higher terrain as we go on into this weekend, because there could be some snow flying here and we get this stretch of nice weather. It hasn't been raining much here recently, but some very nice warm afternoons, and people could be caught off guard. So heads up for that. But anyway, we'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys later.